Hey there, fellow wanderers. As you lean back and let your mind drift, you find yourself standing on the edge of a vast expanse. The sun dips low on the horizon, casting long shadows that dance over the coarse, endless plains. The dry, arid air brushes your face with a whisper of sand, while the hushed silence of the desert evening presses around you. An owl hoots softly in the distance, and you can almost feel the weight of history in the cool breeze. This is the land where tales of the Wild West were spun, where reality often turned stranger than fiction. The smell of dust, gunpowder, and leather fills your nostrils, drawing you deeper into a world that is a far cry from fairy tales. This is not a fairy tale, no gentle knights or enchanted woods here, just the stark, raw truth of life and death on the frontier. Yet it calls to you, doesn't it? The allure of the untamed, of characters larger than life who carve their names into history with nothing but grit and steel. So, before we dive deeper, I ask only this. If this kind of raw, unvarnished truth speaks to you, click like, hit subscribe, and leave a trace of yourself in the comments. Tell me your city, your time, your state of mind. Now, dim the lights. Let the hum of your fan blend with the wind of centuries past. We're about to journey back to an era where life was as fragile as a prairie flower blooming between the cracks of a sun-baked earth. Let's begin. And remember, in medieval times, even survival was a luxury. You're now seamlessly transitioning through the vast colour palette of the Old West. With each step you take, imagine that sound of crunching dirt beneath your boots. The atmosphere is thick with anticipation, akin to the endless moments before a storm breaks. This is the world of gunslingers, an archetype built from the threads of danger, courage, and often sheer luck. The Wild West may seem like a land of simple truths and binary choices, right or wrong, hero or villain, but the reality is as nuanced as it is brutal. You realize quickly that these were not just stories of lawmen with shiny badges and black-hatted outlaws. They were tales spun from a fabric of survival and desperation, with characters driven by motives as tangled as the desert scrub. Try picturing Wyatt Earp, one of the most legendary figures of the Old West. He was a lawman, sure, but not in the way you might think. He skirted the law as often as he enforced it, navigating a convoluted path through a frontier so wild that it makes your modern-day commutes feel like a walk in the park. Historians still argue whether the gunfight at the OK Corral, which immortalized Earp, was a simple firefight over justice, or a personal vendetta played out under the scorching sun. As you delve deeper, you'll notice a cacophony of smells, like roasting beans from a nearby campfire or the metallic tang of gun oil. These are the olfactory notes of the Wild West, a bizarre symphony that stirs an unsettling excitement in the pit of your stomach, an excitement that perhaps gunslingers felt before a duel. There's that subtle sarcasm as if the ghosts of the past are sharing an inside joke at your expense. You start to understand that what draws you into this enigmatic world is the web of contradictions. These gunslingers, admired for their grit, were often individuals haunted by poverty, personal demons, or dashed dreams. Take Doc Holliday, for example, a dentist by trade, but he found infamy in the gambling halls of the frontier. He had lungs riddled with tuberculosis, and was arguably more dangerous with a deck of cards than with a six-shooter. Imagine the texture of the frontier towns. Swatches of wood and canvas flaps painted with trails of dust. The early evening would bring a touch of coolness, but the heat of the day lingers still, a balm to the chill that follows the sun's departure. The towns were often more bark than bite, a facade of order and frontier justice hiding the chaos within. Then there were the duelists, each with their quirks. Some didn't even care for the classic standoff, draw at 10 paces and shoot, with its bizarre unwritten codes. Many accomplished gunmen, like Wild Bill Hickok, met their end not in honourable duels but in deceptive ambushes, shot in the back, where honour took the bench and survival reigned supreme. This complex tapestry of the Wild West invites you to pause and truly explore beyond the surface-level allure of spurs and shootouts. You close your eyes and hear the creak of a saloon door, the soft patter of boots on wooden floors, each step releasing clouds of dust that float and settle languorously in the warm glow of lamplight. You can almost hear the quiet murmur of voices over a frothy pint of beer, the kind that tastes like bitter adventure itself, a liquid echo of laughs and gunshots. Through your inward observation, remember, the West was anything but wild in the ways you've been led to think. It is a landscape of nuanced stories, rich with mysteries still debated in the halls of academia and dusty archives. So come along, let each step on this endless trail seep into your soul as the layers unravel, enfolding you in a tapestry of the past, and trust that our journey has only just begun. Countless paths still beckon with the promise of revelation. As you sink deeper into your seat, let the weight of these stories settle into your mind, whispers of the past lulling you further into the comfortable depths of nostalgia. Why not linger a little longer? The night is young and the West is wide. You find yourself standing amidst the eerie calm of a western town just before a standoff. Dust devils pirouette daintily down empty streets, while lazy tumbleweeds saunter past wooden facades streaked with the scars of scorching sun and time. Your senses are on high alert, ears straining to catch the faint jingles of spurs cutting through the oppressive quiet. The air is tense, thick with the anticipation of an indelible moment, the Climatic Standoff, a duel where reality hinges on the speed of a quick draw and the precision of aim. The mythology of the gunslinger duel is one you can almost feel in your bones, a tension humming louder than the cicadas that have fallen silent in respect. In reality, such standoffs were as much about mental prowess as physical skill. The mere idea you can smell the anxious sweat, imagining it mingling with the earthy scent of leather holsters and metal firearms. One of the most iconic figures in this dance of danger was Billy the Kid. His real name was Henry McCarty, a young man whose life teetered on the edge of law and lawlessness. Historians still argue whether Billy was simply an outlaw born out of circumstance, or a misunderstood youth who saw crime as the only path to survival. Either way, his story personifies the intricate, violent ballet of Wild West standoffs. As afternoon shadows stretch into familiar silhouettes, you find yourself standing in the boots of a legend. You level your gaze, measuring the distance between you and your opponent, a seeming eternity compressed into brief heartbeats. Interestingly, many gunslingers employed mind games long before a single shot was fired. The psychological warfare of the Wild West went beyond what you see in dramatized films, with gunslingers sizing each other up with calculated, steely-eyed judgments, predicting movements before they happen. You might wonder how these standoffs began, and, surprisingly, not all were about avenging wrongs or proving bravery. Sometimes they were about honor or money, but often these showdowns evolved from trivial disputes, perhaps over a poker hand gone wrong, or a saloon brawl escalated into something much more lethal. The fringed figures squaring off against each other were driven by necessity, win or face a costly failure. Consider the legendary encounters like the shootout in Tombstone, where the Earp brothers faced off against cowboys in a moment that swirled myth with reality. Though it took less than 30 seconds, the gravity of that event imprinted itself securely on American law. Those few seconds before the draw were like the calm before a storm, charge laced into the air, thick with gunpowder promise. Picture now as you inhale deeply and sense the prickling heat against your skin. The stoic lawmen of the time faced not just the outlaws, but the ever-present uncertainty of frontier life, where civilization was still finding its feet. They stood astride a treacherous line, their badges a thin veneer over violence, cloaked in a precarious blend of justice and personal vendettas. Another side of these climatic standoffs veiled the human element that historians still uncover today. Gunslingers, contrary to their hardened image, often feared these duels. Each draw meant potential death, forever shaping the barren landscape and the lives woven through it. The resolve demanded by a duel was not just of nerves, but of heart and mind, as every tick of the clock took them a step closer to an uncertain fate, a point of no return. As you let these stories roll over you like a gentle wave, you are reminded of the dry wit woven into the peril of the Wild West, a humour as sharp as a six-shooter, but softer around the edges with a tint of nostalgia. If the gunslingers had a motto, it might have been something like, "Life's as unpredictable as a card game with a greased deck." And here, you're enveloped in the silence that speaks louder than words, meditating on the space where sand and sky meet. Reflect on these tales of courage and folly, spun around the hearth of history, where the echoes of those climatic showdowns continue to dance under endless starlit skies. After all, in this wild tapestry where men faced off with life on a razor's edge, it wasn't always about who was the quickest on the draw. Sometimes it was about who had the courage to stand their ground when it mattered most. With the sun setting just so, washing away another day in the land of legends. As you wander further into this world of grit and gunpowder, the lines between right and wrong blur like the haze on a scorching summer day. The lawmen of the Wild West, often idealized as bastions of justice and order, walked a precarious line themselves, often finding their moral compasses twirling wildly under the vast starlit sky. You feel a gentle breeze as you imagine striding beside these figures of authority, their badges glinting under the muted glow of an ever-watchful sun. Wyatt Earp may have been a lawman in the eyes of many, yet his story is rooted in shades of grey that he navigated with a shrewd, almost sardonic grace. There's a certain irony in his name being synonymous with upholding the law, given his past transgressions and surprising associations with less savoury characters. Picture Earp at the poker table, his keen eyes equally adept at spotting troublemakers or securing a winning hand. Historians still argue whether he was truly dedicated to justice or simply a man adept at playing both sides to his advantage. The air crackles with the dichotomy present in this vast landscape, a place where lawmen could just as easily step over the line, feeling the hot tension like a loaded weapon in their hand. The aroma of decades-old tobacco mingles with the leather of their holsters, a sensory reminder of where the lawful and the lawless sometimes merged. Out here, the badge was only as powerful as the person who wore it, and being a gunfighter was as much a mindset as it was an occupation. Take, for example, the story of Pat Garrett, the man who famously ended Billy the Kid's outlaw life. Once close friends, Garrett and the Kid's paths diverged as the dusty trails of the West dictated different destinies. Garrett's identity morphed from rancher to sheriff, with an inevitability egged on by circumstance, a testament to the frontier where change was the only constant. His tale blurs warmth with cold efficiency, leaving one to ponder what truly resides within a lawman's heart when faced with the harshness of justice or mercy. Imagine now the sound of spurred boots striking wooden plank sidewalks, a rhythmic acknowledgement of authority patrolling the restless towns. The lawmen knew every corner, every whisper of potential threat riding on the desert wind. Well, maybe not every whisper. Sometimes the towns had eyes and ears more loyal to outlaws than law's men. Histories exude a wry kind of humour here, a chuckle over the kind of impromptu alliances forged behind saloon doors. Throughout the undulating tapestry of the West, some lawmen wore their badges with pride, others with a weight they'd gladly lay down in favour of quieter pastures. But in the absence of modern law enforcement structures, where survival was a law unto itself, the very definition of justice bent like a glowing red iron over implacable flame. Promises were often broken as carelessly as they were made, binding all under a sky vast enough to hide transgressions in its seamless arc. The delicate dance between the righteous and the rebellious crafted a unique narrative where losses and victories intertwined with the very dust settling on scrubby prairie grass. The justice meted out was a raw, unrefined affair, occasionally brutal, often swift, and almost always personal. As the evening glow creeps in, sinking behind the horizon, you can envision these figures retreating into the comforting shadows, still wrestling with their own inner dilemmas, the borderlines they tread as fluid as the desert sands. And then, of course, there are tales of legends too curious to ignore, like Bat Masterson, an illustrious figure whose life transformed from gunfighter to lawman, then to sports columnist later. A personification of how the West could be as whimsically unpredictable as a late summer thunderstorm, Masterson's life merged the sublime with the ridiculous, a gentle reminder that sometimes truth, like whiskey, only smooths out with age. As you absorb these stories, you feel the weight of history drawn with compelling clarity, a tangled refrain in a score where neither good nor evil ever came unaccompanied by its counterpart. You might think, is the law just a vestige of order? Or perhaps a promise whispered into the dawn by those who sought to create a mirror of civility on the wild frontier? In contemplating the tenuous balance between chaos and order, you realize it was men, and sometimes women, who championed both sides with their respective ideals, much like you'd cradle a teacup on a bumpy wagon ride, carefully, barely spilling a drop and savouring it to the last bittersweet note, amidst the legacy of Lawmen versus Outlaws. The unmistakable click of a revolver's cylinder rotating snaps you back into the moment, a sound as timeless and comforting to a gunslinger as the rhythmic cadence of a heart beating in sync with the buzz of cicadas at dusk. The revolver, an icon of the Wild West, becomes more than just a tool of survival. It's a trusted companion, a metal confidant that sways the balance between life and death. You take a slow breath. The sharp, metallic scent of gun oil is almost palpable, mingling with the sandy breeze that sweeps across the vast plains. It's a world where guns speak a language as unique as the men and women who wielded them. The Colt single-action army, notoriously known as the Peacemaker, was famously dubbed the gun that won the West. This revolver, with its sleek design and renowned reliability, found its way into countless hands where it was revered, if not for its deadly efficiency, then certainly for its artistry. As you picture yourself in the shoes, or rather boots, of a gunfighter, you can feel the solid weight of the revolver resting comfortably against the hip, a reassuring presence in an unpredictable land. Here, in the dry, dusky heat that bleaches the sky, these firearms were equalizers. In the hands of a quick-draw artist, they represented security and power, their presence lending an exhilarating focus to the tension simmering just beneath the surface. Yet each gun came with its peculiarities, its own personality. Some were finely engraved with intricate designs, perhaps a nod to almost alchemic artistry, while others bore the markings of numerous scrapes and desert passages as badges of survival. Imagine the smell of wood and metal, merging with the faint tang of sweat. Texture and grit seem palpable in this world, where few things came easy. And then there were the quirks of reloading, adding layers of complexity to this fascinating craft. Pouring gunpowder, aligning percussion caps, and slotting cartridges while potential adversaries watched in steely silence. These were maneuvers of patience and precision, often captured in the cracked frost of early morning duels. In these panoramas, you realize the choreography of gunners was as much an art form as any dance, coaxing unpredictability into storytelling. One cannot forget the esteemed Winchester rifle. Though often dubbed the gun that won the West, as a friendly rivalry in stories of settlers and cowboys debating which tool, revolver or rifle, truly deserves the laurels for securing the frontier. Historians still argue whether it was the rapid-fire capability of the Winchester or the reliable single action of the Colt that etched victory into the rough-hewn landscapes. Within this chaotic saga is the unmistakable reality that, for these gunslingers, losing a sidearm or rifle often meant losing the edge that kept them alive. Personalization played a key role, each firearm becoming an extension of the person who bore its weight. From custom grips to meticulous handload renovations, these weapons marked the personal legacy stamped on their carriers' lives. Picture, if you will, the sight of a gunslinger seated on a rickety chair outside a cabin, lovingly maintaining a revolver under the waning light. The sounds dissolve into a hushed conversation between man and instrument, where every part disassembled and cleaned becomes a restoration of trust. It's an intimate ritual, accompanied by the subtle music of wrens settling into evening nests. A moment of peace amid the surrounding tumult. Taking a pause, there's room for a chuckle. A wry kind of understanding blooms, that no embellishment could eclipse the raw practicality behind crafting these weapons. Out here, where sunset blushes red against a treeless horizon, lovingly carved grips were likely appreciated just as much as the business end of the barrel. As you retreat deeper into this narrative, tracing each finger-worn groove along a gun's body, you start to appreciate the idiosyncrasies that define these tools. A small, uncomplicated joy comes to life, a satisfying feeling that, whether discussing the click of a perfectly timed hammer or the jolt of recoil nestled into one's shoulder, you're in on a secret. It's a truth nestled between each gear, bolt and trigger, the shared language of those who understood this machinery's silent oath in a land that asked for so much and gave only what you could take. Standing now on the ridge of this reflection, let the iconic guns of the Wild West rest comfortably in your thoughts, just as they did in the hands of gunslingers long past. As history repeats itself in whispers through the rustle of sagebrush, savour the soothing hum of bygones echoing through this timeless land of guns and glory. The sun dips low across the horizon, painting the sky with hues of burnt orange and deep indigo as you delve deeper into the tales spun from the Wild West, a place where stories grew taller than the cacti dotting the landscape. Here, amidst the dust and chaparral, the air is thick with the scent of wild sage, mingling with a more elusive aroma, that of famed legends and famous fallacies, stories embroidered over decades into the larger-than-life myths we know today. You stroll through these legendary tales, peering past the mirage that skillful storytelling has woven tightly around reality. These myths, often as dusty and worn as the boots of the gunslingers who lived them, hold truths and fabrications interwoven more tightly than a prospector's lucky vest. It's a landscape where the details often blurred, much like liquid heat rising off the sun-baked roads, obscuring the lines between fact and fiction. Take, for example, the enigmatic Wyatt Earp, a figure commonly glorified as an unfaltering lawman. The gunfight at the OK Corral is Earp's most famous legacy, depicted with such frequency in film and print that it's become almost mythological. Yet historians continue to debate the veracity of this narrative. Was Wyatt truly the paragon of justice, or was this a cleverly crafted yarn spun to shape a more palatable image? Such questions linger like relics caught in time, echoing gently with the murmur of dusty ghosts. In truth, Wyatt Earp's life was a portrait of contradictions, more mottled than the black-and-white picture history often paints. Tales speak of his gambling ventures, skirmishes with the law, and a penchant for eschewing traditional morality when it suited his needs. Historians argue still, venturing down rabbit holes where evidence is as scarce as water in the desert. The figure of Billy the Kid also looms large in this tapestry of tales, a spirited wraith armed with both charm and a Colt revolver. Popular culture has transformed him into a rebellious hero, yet the accuracy of his storied escapades is as fleeting as desert rain. Did he truly kill 21 men for every year of his life? Or is this detail another flourish of myth, born from the era's hunger for vivid tales of notorious outlaws? Lean in closer and you realize that these myths were not just casual tales told round a campfire. Rather, they emerged from something deeper. A desire to create heroes and villains from the raw clay of chaos, shaping legends to fill the expansive void of the frontier. It's a whisper of rumour laid atop the blanket of stars, a warm, seductive yarn spun out across landscapes where survival often took precedence over honour. The juxtaposition of factual skeleton with mythic embellishment is as delicately balanced as a duelist poised at the draw. Consider Calamity Jane, a name that conjures images of unkempt brashness and daring deeds. While the facts of her life reveal a complex woman straddling societal norms with grit and wit, stories about Jane often inflate her escapades into larger-than-life fables. Many yarns, crafted by her own hand or exaggerated through retailings, leave listeners pondering where calamity ended and imagination began. These famous fallacies serve as fertile ground for speculation, allowing the imagination to take flight in the clear, star-speckled skies. The notion of mistake leads to a chuckle. Maybe Wyatt Earp's poker face had more to say than any gunfight ever could. Or perhaps Billy the Kid spent more time hiding than confronting his pursuers in moon-drenched standoffs. What becomes clear in your wandering is that storytelling itself becomes a character, a trickster weaving fables that help define the rugged landscape and the people who dared to call it home. The cowboy with 1,000-yard stare turned his life into a frontier ballad. The twinkle in an outlaw's eye became a whole stanza in tales told through the ages. You leave this thought, letting it settle like dust on old saddles, embracing the humour and humility shared by legends, both factual and fanciful. Spurned by the flavour of fables, you acknowledge that these tales, as outlandish as they may seem, craft the very heartbeats of the Wild West. As you put these stories aside, the frontier's mythical aura lingers sweetly in your mind. You can almost feel the ghosts of gunslingers whispering in the wind, assuring you that in this expanse of tales, the truth is as much a journey as the open road. An invitation to explore deeper, to rediscover the man behind the myth and the legend behind the man. In the unparalleled tales of the Wild West, the sun has dipped below the horizon now, leaving behind the lingering warmth of its memory on the land. As the night descends, the chilling whispers of the Wild West's unsolved mysteries float through the air like a ghostly fog, coaxing you to listen closer. Here, in this vast tableau of cactus shadows and silver moonlight, the night is a storybook filled with enigmas waiting to be unraveled. Imagine, if you will, strolling through the empty streets of a ghost town, the soft rustle of tumbleweeds and the gentle creak of weathered wood punctuating the silence. It's a world imbued with secrets, where each muted footstep resonates like a question left unanswered. Among these mysteries, tales of lost gold and inexplicable disappearances hold a particular allure, each story coiling around you like smoke from a campfire. Many of these unsolved conundrums revolve around the ever-alluring prospect of treasure concealed beneath the arid soil. Perhaps the most famous of these is the Lost Dutchman's Mine, a legendary gold mine supposedly hidden in the Superstition Mountains of Arizona. Despite exhaustive searches by countless treasure hunters over generations, the mine remains elusive, an enigma that continues to bewitch adventurers with its golden promise. Historians still argue whether the mine ever existed, or if it merely symbolizes the eternal quest for fortune that permeated the era. Such debates become part of the story, as intriguing as the mystery itself. In the haunting embrace of the night, tales of mysterious disappearances add another layer of enigma to the frontier. Consider, for instance, the vanishing of stagecoaches travelling what seem to be well-established routes. These vehicles filled with hopeful travellers and precious cargo simply faded into oblivion. It was as if they were swallowed by the earth itself, leaving only whispered legends swirling through the desert air. As tendrils of doubt slip into your mind, you ponder the fate of these lost souls, and whether the relentless elements or the hidden hands of fate played a part in their disappearance. The tale of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid is yet another unsolved mystery that captivates imaginations. As the story goes, these two outlaws were said to have met their end in a fiery shootout in Bolivia. Yet credible accounts suggest they may have returned to the United States, living out their days under assumed identities. This dispute leaves a shadow of doubt cast over every photograph or historical record. A siren call to historians piecing together the shrouded leftovers of troubled times. As the wind rustles through leafless branches like quiet whispers gossiping through the canyons, you can almost hear the soft chuckle of the land, as though it finds amusement in the treasure hunter's misadventures and historian's perplexities. What is it about these unsolved mysteries that calls to us, that stirs our imaginations in the dead of night? Is it the quest for understanding, the delicate riddles waiting to be deciphered beneath a blanket of stars? More light-hearted mysteries, too, tickle the ribs of laughter on this adventure. There are tales of peculiar encounters with wildlife, like the infamous jackalope, a mythical creature blending jackrabbit and antelope traits into a charming West folk legend. While any good-natured traveller might chuckle at the notion of spotting such an oddity in action, these satirical tales playfully remind wanderers of the balance between reality and fantasy within this land. As you wander through these corridors of mystery, you feel a shiver. Not from the cool evening breeze, but from the tantalizing grip of intrigue that wraps around you like a well-worn cloak. Each unsolved mystery becomes a mirror, reflecting both what is known and what remains tantalizingly beyond reach. Don't worry if you feel a pull towards these stories. Gutsby dreams and disappeared fortunes continue to cast their intriguing spells, enticing many an inquisitive mind. They weave a fabric of the past that is not only about stone and bone, but questions and curiosities that twist together under shifting constellations in the midnight sky. In your own reverie, ponder the eternal allure of the unknown, and how these wild tales remain, woven into the very fabric of the Wild West. In a land where mysteries linger with the scent of sagebrush on the breeze, remember that tales of the unsolved are threads of a larger tapestry, the beautiful, chaotic tapestry of history that continues to beckon beyond the veil of time. As twilight gives way to the deeper hues of night, the landscape of the Wild West unfurls like a tapestry woven with stories of grit and grace. Amidst the rugged terrain, you catch whispers of the secret lives of gunslingers, stories hidden between the pages of history, revealing layers that defy the stark shadows cast by legend. Here, beneath the twinkling stars, the air carries whispers of dreams and contradictions that define these enigmatic figures. As you feel the coolness of the night deepening, imagine standing in a small, shadowed room at the back of a rustic saloon. A single oil lamp flickers in the corner, casting dancing shadows on the walls as men and women gather to exchange tales and laughter, the room thick with the sweet, smoky scent of tobacco. It's in these moments, away from the watchful eyes of the world, that the hidden facets of gunslingers emerge. Glimpses of the people they were, beyond their notoriety. Take, for instance, the infamous Doc Holliday. His name conjures images of a sharp-tongued sharpshooter with a flair for gambling and a hot temper. Yet behind the legend was a man wrestling with the spectre of tuberculosis, a diagnosis that shadowed each step he took. His life was one of contradictions, a trained dentist driven from his practice to the tumultuous life of a gambler and gunfighter, seeking solace and perhaps a sense of destiny beneath the starry stretch of frontier skies. Imagine now the shallow cough echoing in the silent night, a reminder of his personal battles that interplayed with his public persona. The intricate weave of dreams is further coloured by the tale of Annie Oakley. Though more performer than outlaw, her sharpshooting skills catapulted her to fame as Little Shawshot. Yet her story is one of humble roots. Born into poverty, she honed her talent out of necessity. Her journey brought her into the orbit of legendary figures, and she shattered the gender expectations of her time like a bullet through paper. Considered one of the best shots of all time, her life speaks to resilience and determination, proving that heroes can emerge from the most unexpected circumstances. As you tread lightly across this tapestry of lives, you'll discover that even those known as outlaws carried secret hopes. Jesse James, for instance, is often painted with broad strokes as a notorious bandit whose charm belied his ruthless tendencies. But delve deeper, and you find the complexity of a man whose actions were sometimes fueled by a personal vendetta, coloured by a post-war Southern identity amidst Reconstruction chaos. Crowds may have romanticized his exploits, but beneath the veneer lay the turmoil of distrust and displacement, seeking recognition in the margins of society. In through these wooden doors of backroom parlours and unassuming saloons, the figures now stretch beyond their shadows in the firelight. Each gunslinger's life bears the same delicate balance as the poker hands they played, bluffs carefully weighed against stark decisions in the frontier toolkit. Here, the creak of wooden floorboards accompanies the slow realization that reputation alone could not encompass their deeper roots and dreams. Reflect on how these lives, bracketed by bullets and bravado, found moments to whisper their stories into the void. A testimony to the quieter ambitions and desires that often lurked behind the hardened facades. Outlaws and lawmen alike were bound by shared dreams and fears, sculpting their narratives against a backdrop that recognized the grey spaces between right and wrong, hero and villain. With the night's cool embrace, let your imagination linger there, amidst the gentle hum of nocturnal creatures. There you find the resonance of these shared stories, an orchestra of complexity and contradiction under the sprawling sky, where stars silently tell tales of heart against hardship. As you drift from this world, be aware of the life thrumming beneath the layers, like whispers through the canyon. These secret lives of gunslingers breathe that reminder of humanity, shrouded beneath the cowboy hats and dust-crusted jackets. In this solemn recognition, the humble victories and silent struggles become eternal companions on this midnight dance across history. A poignant reminder that every tale bears creases like well-worn leather, marked by the dreams we nurture in the quiet spaces of our souls. As the night unfolds, drawing a canopy of stars across the expansive sky, your journey through the Wild West takes an unexpected turn. In an era dominated by rugged masculinity and tales of fearless outlaws, stories of remarkable women, ladies who shot with precision and carved their own paths in the scorched earth, begin to surface, shimmering like rare gems against the backdrop of history. You find yourself strolling into the hustle and bustle of a town square, alive with the smells of roasted corn and fresh hay. Here, amidst the dust and determination, some of the most captivating figures emerge. These women, often overshadowed by their male counterparts, were every bit as daring and skilled with a firearm. Take Annie Oakley, for instance, an iconic figure whose sharpshooting prowess earned her a rightful place among the legends. Her story unfurls in a swirl of gunpowder scents and soft Midwestern accents. Born in the heart of Ohio, Annie defied the constraints of her time with rifle in hand, dazzling audiences across the world. Her fame wasn't just in her precision shooting, but in how she opened doors for women, shattering glass ceilings as deftly as she shattered clay targets in midair. Then there's Calamity Jane, a name synonymous with rebellion and independence. With her unkempt hair flying in the prairie wind, she became a beacon of wild tenacity, navigating the harsh realities of life on the frontier with a tough exterior that masked a heart just as raw and open. Known for her sharp wit and even sharper aim, she roamed the West as a cattle driver, scout, and occasional star of sensational tales. Separating fact from fiction in her story is as tricky as locking eyes with a mirage at high noon. Historians still argue whether Calamity Jane's colourful anecdotes, such as her supposed romance with Wild Bill Hickok, were fueled by genuine encounters or enhanced by her flair for showmanship. Often photographed with defiant eyes and a no-nonsense stance, her legacy is a vivid tapestry of myth and reality, one that leaves a trail as intriguing as the scent of rain in a desert town. But let's not forget Pearl Hart, an unwavering spirit whose outlaw persona came to life in the latter days of the Old West. Stepping into her boots, you'd find yourself caught in the thrill of train robberies and narrow escapes, experiencing first-hand Hart's audacity. Her exploits, such as the 1899 stagecoach heist, painted her as a defiant figure challenging gender norms with each tug of a cowgirl hat. Her life was a blend of rebellion and reinvention, echoing with the sharp crack of law's edge danced along with grace. As you imagine these figures, women who walked the jagged edge of history with flair and fire, you can almost hear the tinkling of piano keys from a saloon nearby, accompanying their stories with a lively tune that speaks of triumphs and trials. From fast-drawn duels to riding astride horses through the dust clouds of the wilderness, they defied societal conventions with every shot fired and every nuanced decision made. Their narratives weave seamlessly into the broader story of the Wild West, each woman leaving an indelible mark, made more poignant by the challenges they overcame. With grit carved into their souls like patterns worn into leather gun holsters, they emerged as symbols of perseverance and courage. A testament to the silent, powerful presence women wielded on this vast frontier. In the quiet of the evening, as shadows stretch long and thin across the land, you're reminded that the tale of the West isn't just the tale of cowboys and gunslingers. It's a sprawling epic where all voices matter, where every shot fired echoes not just from the revolvers, but from the deeply held convictions of those who dared to defy the norm. As your journey with these spirited women comes to a gentle pause, allow their whispers to settle into your consciousness, like the soft lull of the wind through the prairie grass. These ladies who shot and shattered stereotypes did so while crafting legacies that give breath to the silent narratives of the past. A powerful reminder that heroes too wear skirts and ride high, but often they walk among us in ways less recognized until remembered through the quiet dust of time. Let these stories accompany you as companions through the night, etched into the eternal scenery where history dances under a sky full of secret, shining stars. With dawn's early light peeking over the horizon, the story transitions to another realm where fact often blurs with the theatrical. High noon is synonymous with the classic gunslinger duel, but in reality the truth is more convoluted than the shadows cast by the midday sun. As you walk through the dust-laden streets, it becomes clear that the glamour and chaos of a gunfight are intertwined with the mundane. Picture yourself standing roughly 10 paces away from your opponent, the sun directly overhead, casting no shadow. The heat presses down like an unwanted companion, yet there is a surreal silence that envelops you, broken only by the occasional chirp of a cricket seeking respite in the shade. This moment is palpable. Every bead of sweat, every breath draws out potential futures created by a single twitch of the finger. Hollywood has done its part in crafting the legendary shootout, creating a legacy of tension-filled showdowns that explode into Western lore with dramatic soundtracks and intense close-ups. In reality, though, these duels often lacked the cinematic flair everyone assumes. Many such standoffs were usually quick, chaotic, and far from the artful choreography depicted on screen. In essence, the high noon, the spectacle is a fascinating blend of truth and fiction, where the former often loses dominance to the latter's imaginative canvas. Take, for instance, the iconic showdown at the OK Corral, etched into popular culture as a quintessential high noon duel. In reality, the infamous gunfight was rather brisk, lasting a mere 30 seconds. It was not the beautifully choreographed showdown that films had shaped in the public eye, but instead a spontaneous explosion of violence born out of escalating tensions in the clang of clashing egos. Historians still argue whether it was pure law enforcement or simply a dispute settled through finality. It's also worth noting that many gunfights didn't occur at high noon. More pragmatic than that, they often happened under less than favourable conditions, at dusk, or in dimly lit rooms where the lingering scent of whiskey mingled with gunpowder in a symphony of chaos. Few duels involved two men squaring off in open streets. Instead, they were resolved in narrow alleyways and crowded saloons, where strategy intertwined with desperation. The psychology behind these battles was as potent as the weaponry. A duel wasn't simply about speed, it was about the mind games leading up to the trigger-pulling moment. Gunslingers played on reputation and intimidation, dragging out the anticipation to sway the equilibrium and tip the scales of fortune in their favour. There were practices of psyching out the opponent, cultivating an air of invincibility that could freeze foes long enough to secure those crucial seconds for survival. Moreover, it's not just the men who made these moments historical. Women like Lottie Deno, known as a gambling queen and a master strategist, navigated the same gritty avenues with guile, using their wits to outmaneuver rival players in the high-stakes game of frontier survival. Her grit in a male-dominated sphere speaks volumes for the versatility of tactics beyond mere brute force. Let this thought linger with you. Legends often eclipse the subtle, messy truths behind them, and what remains is a curious mix of romance and reality. These gunfights, with their dramatic flair, are a compelling part of the Wild West's identity, but beneath the myth lies a tapestry of human impulse and instinct, folly and fate. As you continue your amble through echoes of past duels, remember that the essence of these standoffs remains, in the silent contract each gunslinger made with themselves as the world held its breath in suspense. A fleeting dance with destiny, where the curtain falls faster than the eye can register, leaving whispers of smoke to mark what is left of high noon reality versus legend. Let these musings guide you through the day, stories brushing past like tumbleweeds on the breeze. A nod from history that the drama and intrigue we inherit carry whispers of truth dressed in the allure of myth's finery. As the golden light of morning spills over the vast frontier, painting the rugged landscape with strokes of warmth and shadow, your journey takes a deeper dive into the world of notorious duos. In the Wild West, partnerships forged in adversity became legendary, weaving tales of camaraderie and betrayal, loyalty and lawlessness. Each pair left their mark on the sprawling canvas of the time, their shared stories resonating with the unique echoes only a formidable partnership could create. In the midst of this storied land, two names rise like the twin peaks of a distant mountain range: Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Their partnership is as iconic as the towering red rock formations that dot the Utah landscape, where their legend began to take shape. You can almost hear the thundering hooves of their horses beating against the earth, feel the dust rising up in their wake, and sense the adrenaline rush coursing through the veins of two figures bonded by shared exploits and a defiant spirit. Butch Cassidy, born Robert Leroy Parker, carried the surname Cassidy after his mentor. Known for his affable manner and strategic mind, he led the notorious Wild Bunch gang, orchestrating train and bank robberies with uncanny precision. His partner, the Sundance Kid, was the restive yin to Cassidy's yang, a marksman whose skills were as sharp as the sun's glare off a polished six-shooter. His real name, Harry Alonzo Longaball, conceals his legacy, which is forever printed in the frontier. Together, they traversed the West in a series of bold heists and daring escapes, their narratives entwined in the annals of time like the braids of a river carving its path through the earth. Each heist they pulled seemed touched by a sense of fox-like cleverness, leaving lawmen perpetually a step behind, shadowed by their larger-than-life antics. With every success, each echoing with the clink of golden coins and the exhilaration of evading capture, they secured their places as infamous architects of chaos. Historians still debate the nature of their fabled friendship. Some argue it was built on mutual respect and a spirit of defiance against a world that refused to bend to their wills. Others suggest it was the practical alliance of two men who recognized the value of a trusted ally in a land that was both expansive and relentless. Whatever the truth, the fascinating link between them often glittered sharper than the work of the pistols they wielded. Their stories twirled around campfires and saloon bars, told and retold, acquiring new embellishments with each telling. Scenes of elaborate escape that Houdini might envy, moments of unexpected tenderness in acts of calculated lawlessness. Through it all, they remained two sides of a rugged coin, a partnership as legendary as it was lucrative. A reminder that alliances in the Wild West were as necessary as a loaded gun when the chips were down. Of course, their escapades led them southward, culminating in their supposed deaths in Bolivia, a shootout shrouded in foreign landscapes and mystery. Some say parcels of contradictions still reside in dusty claims about their fate. Did their story end in that Bolivian standoff? Or did they simply slip into legend, living out their remaining days under veils of anonymity back home? As you immerse yourself in the narrative of Cassidy and Sundance, let the contrasting humours and hardened camaraderie of this duo linger. Their tale is both cautionary and charismatic, folded neatly into the mosaic of Western folklore. You might ponder whether it was their skill that kept them one step ahead, or the sheer audacity of their intertwined destinies. Then, as shadows begin to shift with the sun's gentle climb, consider the wider dynamics of such duels of fate. There were others, like the deadly pairing of Bonnie and Clyde, who skirted across their own lines of legality, leaving tumult in their wake. Each duo wrote their own unique script upon the great stage of the West, a testament to the human need for comradeship and adventure. As you wander along the paths these duos once travelled, feel connected to their daring escapades, the blend of adventure and anticipation sewn into the very fabric of the land. Allow the music of their rides to echo gently in your thoughts, harmonizing with the whispers of the past here in the Wild West, where partnerships flourished amidst the dust and dreams of yesteryears. The sun climbs higher, casting its steady gaze across the Wild West, a realm where the fate of many teetered on the edge of chance and skill alike. As you imagine the landscape unraveling before you, speckled with cacti and craggy mountains, the subtle drama of close calls comes into sharp focus. Here, on these dusty trails and windswept plains, both outlaws and lawmen often found themselves walking the razor's edge, their fates hanging in a delicate balance. Swayed more often by luck or wits than by sheer gun prowess. The sound of distant hoofbeats echoes through the air as you imagine the tense anticipation of a narrow escape, that singular moment when probability pivots on a dime. These stories of close calls were not just about the clash of men and metal, but about the quieter battles. The ones fought in the heart and mind, where instincts honed by survival whispered louder than the crack of a gunshot. Consider the tale of Wild Bill Hickok, a legendary figure of the West, whose very presence could send ripples of apprehension through a saloon crowd. His reputation as a top marksman preceded him wherever he went, yet even he was not immune to the capricious hand of fate. August 2, 1876 was the day the hand of cards he held became known as the dead man's hand. 2 black aces and 2 black eights. Seated with his back to the door, a rare lapse for the usually vigilant Hickok, it was a moment of miscalculation that cost him his life. Jack McCall pulled the trigger, and in an instant the legendary gunslinger was no more. Yet even as he fell, Hickok's legacy of never turning his back survived him, a testament to the close calls that roam this untamed land. Then there's the figure of Bat Masterson, a contemporary of Hickok. Renowned both for his prowess with a gun and his knack for diplomacy, Masterson walked through dangerous encounters with an ease that verged on the uncanny. In his later years as a sports writer in New York, he'd regale listeners with stories of how he'd walked away from tangles with death, employing a blend of cool logic and luck, a dance that kept him on the living side of the history books. As you wander through these tales, you sense the ticklish humour that often dances at the edge of danger, an awareness that sometimes the bullet you dodge is as telling as the bullet you catch. For every gunslinger cut down in their prime, there were countless others who scraped through by a hair's breadth, often making their escapes in ways that became law. Escaping from ambushes, evading lawmen with clever disguises, or thwarting foes with a well-timed distraction. The Mexican standoff itself, realized often in cramped alleys and tight saloons, held its own charisma. 3 sides locked in a triangle of doubt, sweat trickling down brows as each player tries to suss out the intents and weaknesses of the others. In this tense dance, Victory often lay in a quirk of fate as much as in strategy or firepower. Even characters like Jesse James, figures who seemed to be blessed with endless 9 lives, owed their longevity as much to luck as to skill or sheer audacity. James survived numerous scraps and skirmishes before betrayal finally consigned him to history's pages, a reminder that in this world of close calls, no name or reputation could safeguard against the inevitable gamble with fate. As shadows lengthen, you contemplate these tales of almosts, each one a story within itself, textured with humour and humility. While the mythos of gunslingers often celebrates their apparent invulnerability, it's these close calls that stitch together the broader fabric of life in the Wild West, painting a more compelling portrait of resilience. So let these stories, with their quirks and near misses, provide you with an appreciation for the delicate dance of chance that flavoured the era. Each close call is a testament to the fine line between legend and oblivion, a reminder that in the clamour and dust of the Wild West, sometimes it was the small, unnoticed moments that dictated the greater story, allowing whispers of wind to carry tales of caution and courage alike. The sun casts long shadows over the desolate landscape, where the horizon stretches out endlessly. As you trek through this territory that once felt the vibrations of hooves and the crackle of campfires, you become aware of the secretive undercurrents that ran through the Wild West like hidden tributaries. The enigmatic Outlaws' hideout secrets. These were the sanctuaries of survival, tucked away from prying eyes and the relentless pursuit of those who sought justice. Picture, if you will, a rugged band of outlaws on the move, saddlebags bulging with the loot from their latest heist. Dust churns beneath their horses' hooves as they head for their hideout, a place as unknown as it is essential. In the Wild West, where every rustle in the underbrush could signal an impending bounty hunter, these hideouts were cleverly chosen and fiercely guarded. One of the most infamous sanctuaries was the Hole in the Wall, a remote pass in the Big Horn Mountains of Wyoming. Imagine the stillness of this secluded canyon, its high walls wrapping around you like a fortress of natural stone. It's almost as though the very land conspired to protect those who sought refuge there, providing a base for gangs such as Butch Cassidy's Wild Bunch to lick their wounds, plan their next escapade, and escape the long arm of the law. The air here is still, almost eerily so, with the scent of pine and damp earth lingering as a reminder of the hidden lives it once sheltered. Then there were the coastal caves, which offered another world of concealment along the Californian and Oregon coasts. Here, the salty tang of the ocean mixed with the chill of sea-sprayed winds, providing both literal and figurative cover for illicit activities. Smugglers and outlaws alike took advantage of the labyrinthine passages, their briny walls silent witnesses to hushed conversations and the shuffle of clandestine pursuits. At the edges of civilization, these hideouts became central nodes in extensive underground networks. As the night sits heavily upon the land, you can almost hear the low rumble of voices. Coded messages passed from one hideout to another through a chain of scouts and informants. In this intricate dance of deception, safe havens were sometimes as simple as a barn with a compassionate farmer, or an abandoned settler's cabin left to the mercy of time. Historians still argue whether some hideouts, like the one rumoured to be hidden in the desert sands of New Mexico, were ever real. Stories of hidden treasure troves and well-provisioned caves abound, spun seamlessly with whispers of ghostly sentinels and secret escape routes. These tales echo the complexity and cunning that defined this underworld, where outlaws wove a web of misdirection and mystery. Imagine the path to these sanctuaries, a maze to confound potential pursuers, fraught with natural traps and misleading landmarks. Even the most familiar route carried with it the ever-present risk of discovery. The persistent challenge was ensuring protectors against betrayal. Not every comrade could be trusted with the location of such a precious refuge. Within these shelters, the scent of campfires and strong coffee accompanied weary discussions of trust, loyalty, and the omnipresent threat of betrayal. Yet, as secure as these hideouts might have felt, they served as temporary respites from the uncertainty that clung to every outlaw like the dust of the prairie. The knowledge that every stay was but a fleeting moment in an ongoing game of cat and mouse made them paradoxically both sanctuary and prison, holding each outlaw in a grasp as strong as the iron bars they sought to avoid. So, As you roam the recollections of these hidden realms, let the spirit of intrigue and survival roll through your mind like a gentle brook through the landscape. Each hideout story spins a tale of resourcefulness and legacies hidden in the rock and sand, a testament to the resilience of those who, at least for a while, found safety in the secrets of the land. Remember these places, as footsteps fade, veiled by time and folklore, and consider that the trail once marked only by stolen glances and whispered legends has now morphed into echoes on the wind. Part of the silent narrative of endurance still carried across the endless expanse of the Wild West. Under the starlit canopy, the Wild West unfurls its tapestry of stories, tantalizing you with echoes of lives lived boldly and often precariously. Within this vast narrative, one aspect holds a particular fascination: the legendary last words attributed to gunslingers before they met their maker. These final utterances, captured in moments of clarity or confusion, towed the line between poignant, prophetic, and occasionally absurd, a reflection of the colourful lives their speakers led. We're drawn to the scene as it unfolds. A dimly lit saloon or a barren stretch of land serves as the backdrop where fate often plays its final hand. The air is filled with the scent of leather and gunpowder, a ghostly reminder of the moments before. Within this setting lies the utterance of words that linger in the air like the gunsmoke slowly dissipating into the night. Consider Wild Bill Hickok, a man whose presence commanded respect and trepidation alike. Legend has it that his death came as suddenly as a snapshot. Shot from behind while playing poker, his last words, if they were truly spoken, were said to be an acknowledgement of the impending "I hope, I have time." A stark, foreboding recognition of life's fleeting dance, and, whether these words were truly his or shaped by the embellishment of time, they encapsulate the sharp edge of Hickok's world, where danger was but a breath away. Then there's the tale of Billy the Kid. His reputed final words, "Queen-ess," or "Who is it?" echo through history with the intrigue that so often surrounded his life. This colourful farewell echoes the deception of that night, as he was shot by Sheriff Pat Garrett in the flickering shadows that concealed familiar or perhaps fatal faces. In the simplicity of those words, there lies a certain tragic humour, reflecting the chaos of identity and the shadows at play in his brief, tumultuous life. These legendary last words often carried a tinge of dark wit that bespoke the frontier's perspective. Life was precious, but as predictable as a roll of the dice. Franklin McLaury's purported final words before the gunfight at the OK Corral, "I've got you now," highlight the ironies of power, the underlying jest in the thin veneer of confidence that many gunslingers wore like a second skin. And not all stories end in resolute anticipation of the beyond. Some last words were unceremonious, even mundane, showcasing the unpredictability of a sudden exit. From bewildered expressions to imploring remarks, these phrases capture the human frailty intertwined with an otherwise mythic existence in stark and often amusing fashion. These farewell utterances leave marks deeper than the desert sand, a final testament to the gunslingers' vulnerabilities and humour, a whispered truth to their mythology. Historians still argue over the authenticity of many of these sayings, but what remains unquestioned is their power as a narrative device. Each brief sentence holds the weight of a story unfolding, the ephemeral balance between life and death. Sometimes the absence of words spoke volumes. The silence could feel like the vastness of the plains themselves expanding outward, an eloquent testament to the legacy these gunslingers left behind. Their stories echo in the windswept silence where legends congregate, overlapping in a luminescent haze at the junction between past and present. As you trace these sonic echoes through the open air, imagine the wisps of smoke and shadow melting into history's canvas, carrying with them the essence of a time deeply connected to the poignancy of being. These legendary final words, whether recorded accurately or coloured by culture's brush, paint a vivid picture of an era where individual legacy often whispered louder than a volley of gunfire. Let these utterances linger in your thoughts, a myriad of tiny, lingering constellations across the great sky of the Wild West, a reminder that each word carried in its tiny wingbeat the essence of those whose voices trailed afterward into eternity, leaving legends behind like footprints across the desert's infinity. The air is crisp and silent as you step into the ghostly remains of towns that once thrived on the frontier edge. Each footfall stirs tiny eddies of dust, lifting the whispers of history into the cool morning air. The Wild West may now be the stuff of legend, but its spirit lingers in these historic sites. Ghost towns where the echoes of the past are more than just faint whispers. They are stories carved into the weathered beams and crumbling bricks. As you wander through the remnants of these towns, smell the dry wood and eroding stone, which carry the scent of time long past. Buildings that once stood proudly, bustling with the liveliness of commerce and conflict, now stand as skeletal reminders of a vibrant era, subdued by time. Their weather-worn faces, pocked by sun and wind, still seem to hum with the energy of lives once flourishing here, negotiating the razor's edge between opportunity and peril. One such place is Bodie, California. Once a booming gold rush town filled with the shouts of miners and the jangle of coins, it now exists in a state of arrested decay as a state historic park. Imagine walking down its empty main street, a street that was once brimming with saloons and shops lined with vibrant wares, where laughter echoed between cries of "Eureka!" Today, the doors creak on their hinges, whispering stories of abrupt departures when fortunes dwindled, and the promise of gold took many far away from these dusty pathways. Then there's the town of Silver Reef, Utah, which stood against the odds to prove that silver could be found in sandstone. This extraordinary find turned Silver Reef into a bustling mining hub. Picture the miners' sweaty faces lit by candlelight, their efforts punctuated by the clang of pickaxes echoing through the tunnels. Now only the skeleton framework of the Wells Fargo building and the remains of stone foundations linger, telling tales of swift prosperity and equally swift decline. Or imagine the clangor of Tombstone, Arizona, once thrumming with swaggering gunslingers and hopeful settlers. Its streets bore witness to gambling and gunfights, most notably the infamous showdown at the OK Corral that's woven into the tapestry of its legacy. While Tombstone refuses to surrender to ghost town status fully, existing as a living town draped in historic dress, its past lingers at every corner, a constant murmur beneath the modernity that barely covers the aged heartbeat beneath its dusty streets. These towns are the frozen snapshots of time, where every creaky board and rusty nail tells its own story. A sense of eerie calm lingers here, as if the towns hold their breath, waiting for the life once known to return. Walking through them, you might fancy catching glimpses of phantoms from the past, figures moving out of the corner of your eye. A trick of the light, or is it something more? And what of the less-known outposts, the saloons now silent, the jails whose bars once thudded closed on desperados of note? Each holds secrets and the echo of a long-vanished bustle that resonates gently within these fallen shells. Every road leads to forgotten tales of hope turned to dust, opportunity abandoned to rot beneath the relentless sun. As shadows grow longer, reflecting off the disjointed frames of these historic sites, they seem to absorb the colour of sunset. In this fading light, you're reminded that these ghost towns are more than tombstones of ambition. They are living histories, resonant with the clamour of lives intersecting for a brief but significant moment. So let your journey through these lingering reminders serve as a bridge to the past, a soft light in modern consciousness that captures the beauty and bravery of those who dared to tread these paths. Their stories, inscribed upon the air like distant litanies, remain vibrant strands within the tapestry of the West. As you leave these historic ghost towns behind, the weight of history trails softly like dust on a breeze, alive with the narratives of endeavour and abandonment, a poignant reminder of the legacy etched in wood and stone, still echoing, still alive in this endless stretch of the landscape, unchanged and unyielding to the relentless march of time. As the afternoon sun hangs low, casting long fingers of light across the rugged terrain, your journey brings you to the heart of the gunslinger's art, dueling techniques. In this world of high-stakes showdowns, it's not just about speed, it's a dance of precision, strategy, and sometimes the strange or surprising. Here, a simple showdown is elevated into a kind of ritual, a symphony of split-second decisions and unwavering nerve. The air around you buzzes with an electric tension, as if the landscape itself remembers the echoes of past clashes. Imagine standing in the street of a little western town, the rhythmic echo of a lone windmill punctuating the silence. The taste of dust clings to your lips, mingling with the anticipation that precedes a duel. The moment where time seems to stretch. Contrary to popular myth, gunfights were rarely the choreographed cinematic spectacles modern movies have portrayed. More often than not, they were exercises in controlled, chaotic precision. It wasn't just about who could draw the fastest, but who had the most control, the steadiest hand, and the sharpest mind. You can almost imagine the calm before the storm, where even the whisper of a tumbleweed can feel like thunder. Take, for instance, the concept of the road agent's spin, a technique designed to impress and intimidate. With a revolver loosely held, the gunslinger would twirl it in a flashy, agile maneuver before straightening into a firing position. While it made for splendid theatrics, in a genuine showdown, style rarely trumped substance. This maneuver whispered of bravado, a flourish meant more to unnerve opponents than as a true tactical advantage. Then there were the subtler tactics, like the yank and crank, where the shooter would pull the hammer back with one hand while simultaneously firing with the other. This allowed for quick succession, rapid fire, reducing the time between shots, and could turn the tides in a face-off brimming with tension. In these moments, the gnarled scent of gunpowder lifts into the air as a timeless reminder of the fine, terrible line between victory and mortality. You begin to appreciate that mind games played a key role, perhaps as much as the physical act of drawing itself. Establishing a reputation was crucial, fostering an image that could intimidate foes before a single gun was drawn. Storied figures like Wyatt Earp exploited this psychological warfare, their presence casting longer shadows than their skill with a gun alone might warrant. The weight of a reputation could swathe one in an aura of invincibility, a strategic edge that played on human fear and uncertainty. But honesty showed up unexpectedly in some tales. Doc Holliday, with his impeccable aim, was known to win more often through acumen and accuracy than bluster, though his razor-sharp wit lent a fine edge to his exploits. Perhaps fueled by adrenaline and existential awareness, Holliday's straightforward approach shadowed each quick draw with a disarming laugh, a reminder that skill often spoke louder than any threat. The surroundings of these duels, quiet streets, crowded saloons, sunlit lots, each presented unique challenges. Those confronting a duel had to consider terrain, light, shadows, and the unpredictable factors that could sway outcomes in an instant. It was within these fleeting moments that the true masters revealed themselves, with timing precise enough to etch their stories into the canvas of the Wild West. One can't overlook the extreme precision involved with the softer side of tactics, places where humour found its way into the grave nature of bare-knuckle dueling. Some duelists would lose a shoe, feigning antics or distraction, a ploy designed to catch their opponent off guard. The thin smile that these tricks and techniques offered carried the kind of levity that lightened the heavy chiaroscuro of survival. As the day gives way to the colours of twilight, you reflect on the finesse and fortitude required to truly thrive in this world of dueling strategies. It was a realm where grace mixed with grit, artistry met adversity, and every draw of the gun carried with it not just the chances of a victor or vanquished, but the continuation of storied life itself. In this artful dance of dueling techniques, you will find a shivering elegance, tracing stories in the dust and gun smoke, where shadows meld into the tangible reminder of the courage, craftiness, and compassion that crafted the enduring legend of the Wild West. Breathe it in softly as the night descends, blending the echoes of these moments into a whispered cacophony that lingers perfectly in the landscapes of memory. As day slips gently into evening, with stars beginning to prick the darkening sky like tiny diamonds, your path takes a more whimsical turn. Among the legends and lore of the Wild West, there's a lighter thread woven into the heavier tapestry, eccentric epitaphs that adorn the graves of those who lived and died by the gun. These final inscriptions, etched in stone, are more than mere memorials. They are wry nods to the colourful and often unpredictable lives these gunslingers led. Picture yourself wandering through a time-worn cemetery, where each headstone stands as a testament to a life lived at the edge of a frontier. The scent of wild sage mingles with the earthy aroma of weathered stone, imbuing the air with a sense of quiet reflection and curiosity. It's here, amidst leaning markers and the whisper of the wind through dry grasses, that you stumble upon epitaphs that reveal the uniquely humorous perception these individuals held toward life and death. One grave might read, "Here lies Lester Moore, 4 slugs from a .44, no less, no more." Leicester's epitaph is as famous as it is terse, summing up in a few short lines the stark reality of living by the gun in a world where disputes were often settled with deadly finality. It's a slice of humour sharp enough to cut through time, allowing a small grin to spread across your face despite the sombre surroundings. Then there's the resting place of mysterious Dave Mather, who, though known for his stern demeanour, reportedly wanted to ensure a last laugh from the great beyond. While his tombstone's current whereabouts are debated, tales of his last written words continue to tickle imaginations. Supposedly he requested, "I told you I was sick." If true, the words reflect a devilish wit and a final gesture to deflect the inevitability of life's last horizon. Not all of these markers lean so heavily on humour's side, but they often reflect the simple complexity of the world these gunslingers knew. Consider the no-nonsense epitaph, simply stating, "He'd done his damnedest." Attributed metaphorically to several figures from cowboys to politicians and beyond, those words illustrate a rugged determination that captures the essence of a frontier era cradled in relentless endeavour. Historians might wryly argue whether humorous epitaphs were deliberate choices of the deceased or embellishments made by survivors seeking to prove a point or spin a tale. That uncertainty only enhances their mystique, and whether legend, lore, or fact, they retain their whimsical charm, a nod to the colourful characters of an age where brevity ruled and legend outshone detail. While pondering these poignant farewells, one can't help but associate them with the personalities they honour. Imagine the conversations around campfires, the laughter that would spin stories alongside smoke, echoed in the inscriptions, an eternal chuckle carried on the winds. These engraved messages act as an inviting reminder that even in a harsh world where survival was often a battle against both nature and fellow man, there was room enough for humour, a respite for weary souls. Reflecting on these epitaphs, with the moon rising high to cast gentle shadows over the landscape, you begin to understand that these stones mark more than graves. They hold the stories of lives lived fully, etched in words that capture a frontier spirit, preserved in time's amber glow. So as you make your way through these solicitous markers of memory, allow yourself to be drawn into their curious charm. Each epitaph offers a window into the humanity of those who forged their destinies amidst the grit and grandeur of the Wild West. Individuals unafraid to leave the stage with a smile, leaving behind echoes of humour, defiance, and enduring spirit. May these whispered comminglings of past and present stay with you, an assurance that even in the starkest landscapes, laughter dances lightly above the deeper notes, sweetening the story of existence upon the sage-scented breath of history's endless breeze. As twilight deepens into the velvet of night and the crickets begin their gentle serenade, you find yourself musing upon the quieter mysteries hidden across the endless stretch of the Wild West, particularly the enigma of unmarked graves. These forgotten final resting places, their occupants rendered anonymous by time and circumstance, lie scattered across the desert like unspoken secrets waiting to be unearthed by memory or chance. Imagine walking across a stretch of barren land, where the dust hangs heavy in the air, infused with the scent of sagebrush and whispers of the past. Beneath this terrain, unmarked graves reside inconspicuously, their stories inexorably tied to the landscape. These graves represent the untold accounts of those who walked this world on their own terms, and whose lives etched an indelible yet invisible line across the frontier. In the untamed expanse of the West, the reasons for these unmarked plots were as varied as the lives they signified. Some belonged to nameless drifters who ventured into towns anonymously, slipping away without so much as a paper trail. Others were victims of hasty justice or personal vendettas, laid to rest without ceremony or sentiment. The unmarked grave offered quiet anonymity, a blank page awaiting inscription by the curious or the compassionate who might next wander by. The Old West was a harsh reality, where the desert and prairie both conspired and contended with human will. With life teetering often on the edge of survival, the logistics of marking each resting place were not always a priority. Some souls were simply recorded in the collective memory of the town through tales told long after they were gone, leaving behind graves that became one with the undulating landscape. Our imagination gathers around these enigma-laden spots. Perhaps here lies an outlaw, who fled the law as deftly as he courted danger, meeting an unexpected end at the hands of a rival. Or a long-missing pioneer woman who sought gold and instead found solitude beneath the wide western sky. The secrets of why, burning quietly within the earth. Unmarked graves can also symbolize the intersection of human history and natural forces. In regions prone to floods, mudslides, or other natural upheavals, graves once marked can become lost, memorials washed away in nature's grand indifferent sweep. Historians still debate where specific notorious figures may lie beneath the unyielding western sun, their fates interwoven with the land that ultimately claimed them. Navigating these solemn spaces, you might feel a gentle pull of melancholy, a yearning to place faces or stories to the anonymous earth beneath your feet. There is a poignant beauty in the unremembered, a stark yet profoundly palpable mark left not on stone, but within the echoes of winds that sweep through gullies and canyons. Yet some of these forgotten resting places have evolved into modern-day points of unanticipated discovery. As historians and archaeologists employ new technological insights, combining old tales with modern investigation, the unmarked graves offer not just ghostly reminders, but opportunities to unweave and retell stories almost lost to time. Their presence grants us pause and allows the storytelling to begin anew, breathing life back into the echoes of the past. So, as you tiptoe through this nocturnal setting, let your thoughts dwell on these unmarked abodes, where secrecy intertwines with eternity, and each gust of wind or shifting sand might expose, or conceal, a tale waiting to be heard. These silent passageways represent the timeless cycle of life and death on the frontier, testaments to the profound reality that every life leaves its mark, even if its details remain unspoken. Let this quiet night lend you its contemplation, a gentle nudge that in nature's great tapestry neither man nor memory is truly lost forever. In these unmarked graves echo the whispers of those who lived fiercely, loved deeply, and left their legacies as softly as a sigh across the western winds. As the moon rises to its zenith, casting a silvery glow over the rugged terrain, you find yourself drawn into the shadowy world of bounty hunters, the relentless pursuers of justice, dubious or otherwise, who roamed the Wild West. These enigmatic figures navigated a landscape where morality was as flexible as the shifting sands, straddling the fine line between lawmen and outlaws themselves. Imagine the chill of the night air, carrying the scent of pine and campfire smoke, as you visualize a bounty hunter seated next to a flickering flame, examining wanted posters of the West's most notorious figures. The firelight flickers over their face, casting shadows that echo the many roles they played in frontier justice. These individuals were often as mysterious as the ones they tracked, skilled in the art of survival, with instincts as sharp as any animal prowling the wilderness. Among the most notable of these hunters was a man like Pat Garrett, who earned fame by bringing an end to Billy the Kid's infamous run. But perhaps Garrett's legacy is more a complex tapestry of grit combined with conscience. For tales of his life speak both of determination in the pursuit of justice and a reputation hued with personal turmoil. Historians still argue the finer points, pondering the ethics of bounty hunting in an era where desperation and opportunity walked hand in hand. Indeed, bounty hunters were a curious breed, often misunderstood as mercenaries only out for profit. In reality, many were former soldiers, cowboys, or lawmen who turned to bounty hunting in pursuit of a steadier income. With reward posters flourishing in saloons and post offices, each one offering a tantalizing sum, the profession made for a lucrative, if perilous, career. Most notable, perhaps, was the meticulous preparation that went into each hunt, where strategy often outweighed brute force. These figures thrived in the nuanced shadows of legality, forging alliances when it suited their purpose and operating outside the law's rigid boundaries when necessary. One might imagine them wandering through unfamiliar towns, blending in with the saloon patrons, their eyes ever watchful for a hint of recognition or a lead lurking in the casual gossip of townsfolk, which perhaps is laced with a secret more valuable than gold itself. In these moments, the scent of tobacco and whiskey seems almost tangible, a backdrop to the whispered deals and swapped rumours. Beyond the spectacle of notorious fugitives captured and the bounties collected, however, lies the story of the precarious position bounty hunters occupied. These hunters were as wary of betrayal as they were of their quarry, knowing that distrust rode shotgun on their journeys through these wide western trails. They had to balance shrewdness with nerve, knowing that, much like their outlaws, they too were never fully embraced by society. Yet, in some cases, the interactions between bounty hunters and their targets left lasting marks on both individuals. Tales are told of occasions when hunters and hunted shared an understanding, a mutual respect born in places where the drawing of battle lines became as indistinct as a sagebrush lost in the desert haze. These were stories that spoke to creativity and cunning as much as they did to courage, like episodes from a novel where each character holds a mirror to the other's soul. As the cool night breathes a gentle, sighing wind across your path, you realize that the mythos of the bounty hunter is one of complexity and contradiction. Their role, as written in the dust of history, bespeaks the tangled nature of frontier justice, a prairie song sung in notes of steel and shadow, resilience and relentlessness. So let the allure of their stories accompany you through this moonlit symphony, where the call of the bounty hunter's life resonates, a symphony written in law and lawlessness, winding its melody through the wide open spaces. These unsung hunters' chronicles enrich the grand tapestry, a testament to the singular and collective chapters that remain alive in the songs of the Wild West. As the night deepens, know that their pursuit of justice, fraught with complexity and daring, leaves an imprint as indelible as the starlight, etching silver trails across the infinite sky. As dawn stretches its fingers over the rolling plains and the first threads of golden light weave through the landscape, you step into the daily reality of a gunslinger, a day in the life on the Wild West frontier. The romanticized legends often overshadow the mundane, and yet it is in these quieter moments that you truly glimpse the authentic rhythm of frontier life, its patterns dictated by necessity and the dance of the elements. Imagine the breaking light casting long shadows against the wooden timbers of a frontier cabin, or the canvas flap of a tent nestled against the hills. The air is crisp with the scent of dew-laden earth, mingling with the faint aroma of breakfast cooking on a prairie stove. A heady mix of coffee and fried bacon that wafts across the campsite, bringing the promise of comfort alongside the anticipation of dawn's early chores. As the day unfolds, life settles into the familiar cycle, almost deceptively simple yet laced with the ever-present hum of readiness. In this world, gunslingers began their days much like everyone else, rising early with the dawn to attend to their necessities, checking on a horse, repairing gear, cleaning their revolvers, or perhaps sending a wire from the nearest telegraph station. There is a routine here, as comforting as it is necessary, ensuring that should the call to action arise, they're prepared. A seasoned gunslinger would be ever vigilant, keeping one ear attuned to the sound of approaching hoofbeats or rustling underbrush where danger lurked side by side with opportunity. This heightened awareness wove itself into the fabric of everyday life, an instinctual rhythm of anticipation. The sense of alertness was always there, a subtle energy beneath the quieter sounds of the frontier, like the persistent chatter of cicadas or the distant cry of a hawk. As mornings merged into afternoons, you might find a gunslinger resting beneath the spread of a cottonwood tree, hat tilted against the sun's glare and eyes scanning the landscape. The midday sun casts everything in a warm, drowsy glow, yet within this tranquility lay the potential for sudden action. Perhaps they'd play cards with fellow travellers or practice shooting, refining skills with the precision of an artist crafting a masterpiece. The saloons beckoned as centres of social life, offering both whiskey and whispers, the precious currency of news. Within, the sound of piano keys jangling and the scrape of chair legs across wooden floorboards provided a lively symphony of the West's heartbeat. Conversations danced gracefully between alliances and rivalries, binding together the social tapestry within which the gunslingers spun their lives. Picture now the late afternoon casting amber hues across the terrain as the sun begins its descent. There's often a palpable calm as gunslingers steady their nerves for whatever events may unfold with the shadowed approach of evening. This might be the time to drink deeply from the well of companionship, sharing a quiet meal in the flickering glow of a fire, a moment to breathe in peace before the demands of the trail draw them on again. Historians paint a more nuanced picture, with the scholarly debate swirling around the blend of myths and facts of frontier existence. They argue whether these figures truly epitomized the rugged individualism they're famed for, or if their daily lives were more closely interwoven with the community, reliant on mutual dependence and shared resilience. Society, after all, was as much a web of interconnected lives upon which the gunslingers balanced as singular stars casting solitary shadows. As evening's gentle darkness envelops the horizon, the day draws to a close, leaving an imprint of living as pervasive as the patter of rain on parched earth. You might imagine a gunslinger sitting silently, thinking. The weight of the day lifted for a moment as the night sky unfurls, blanket-like above. Each day lived was a page in their unending story, fraught with danger yet teeming with the potential for everything a new dawn could bring. Let your imagination rest here on these twilight thoughts, the rhythmic pulse of everyday existence echoing softly in your mind, the breath of life among legends continuing to sway with the whispers of the past. A gunslinger's day, threaded with familiarity and stoked by fire, leaves a lasting rhythm that ever beats within the heart of the Wild West, alive in the gentle music of a bygone era. With the sun now a fading ember on the horizon, you delve into the intricate tapestry woven from the threads of legendary gunfights, shootouts that punctuated the Wild West with every sharp crack of gunfire echoing through the arid air. These violent symphonies of the frontier were moments of charged intensity and swift action, yet they are surrounded by a cloud of myth and debate, whispered still in the corners of academia and among those who treasure the romance of history. Standing at the imaginary scene of one of these legendary encounters, you feel the mounting tension as two figures face each other at opposite ends of a dusty street, their silhouettes stark against the backdrop of the setting sun. The anticipation is palpable, as if time itself were holding its breath, waiting for that one defining moment when it unfurls and becomes history in a single heartbeat. One of the most famed showdowns occurred at the OK Corral, a culmination of escalating tensions and personal vendettas in the rugged town of Tombstone, Arizona. As you recreate the scene in your mind's eye, the smell of gunpowder mingles with the dry desert wind, carrying tales both old and new. Here, Wyatt Earp, his brothers, and Doc Holliday squared off against the Clanton and McClory clans. The standoff was more than just a clash of personalities. It was emblematic of the broader struggle between lawmen and cattle rustlers, contrasting visions for the future of the frontier. Historians still argue about the nuanced details of this and other encounters, piecing together remnants of truth from the fog of recollection. Was justice on the side of the Earps, or were their actions swayed by personal grudges against the cowboys? The questions hushed by history offer no easy answers, but the dialogue continues across the gaps of time, an elusive dance of perspective and narrative. As you dig further into the lore of gunfights, consider the psychology and strategic maneuvering that played a critical role. It was not just a question of draw speed, but of readied calculation and intuition. A moment of hesitation could spell victory or defeat. These combats became as much about reading opponents as they were about sheer skill. A high-stakes game where the landscape could turn friend or foe at a moment's notice. Take, for example, the infamous gunfight involving Wild Bill Hickok in Springfield, Missouri, which contributed to the gunslinger's burgeoning legend. The final confrontation between Hickok and Davis Tutt was born from a simmering feud over gambling debts and personal pride, culminating in a single, fateful shot. The story goes that Hickok's composed demeanor and unerring aim secured his victory, the echoes of that single shot reverberating across history as a testament to the brevity and intensity of such encounters. Many other gunfights were recorded not in grand showdowns on main streets, but in cramped rooms, packed taverns, and squalid alleyways. Settings far removed from the grandeur often depicted in film and memory. Some involved outlaws like Billy the Kid, whose escapades and great escapes illustrated both the desperation and audaciousness of those hunted by law. The post-gunfight landscape is often painted with a quiet realism, as the cards fall where they may, bringing closure to bitter rivalries or igniting new vendettas. In the aftermath, as the dust settles, eyewitness accounts sprinkle colour onto the burgeoning legend, their recollections swaying between truth and embellishment, as had the shooter's own fortunes moments before. Each story becomes a living part of the ongoing scholarly debate, living conjectures that are felt even as the last fragment of lead cools off in the dirt. Standing back from these poignant portraits of brave confrontation, reflect on how the essence of these conflicts remains vivid in the fabric of Western lore. They are woven into the cultural tapestry like constellations etched across the night sky, shining down promises of glory and the inevitability of dust returning to dust. Let these accounts, trapped like lightning bugs in the jar of communal memory, flicker against the backdrop of your thoughts, for in each gunfight, whether hailed as frontier justice or whispered as tragedy, there lives an enduring tale of the Wild West. A carefully crafted legend bound in both lead and leather, wound with the sinews of men who stood their ground under the endless sky. Liu Xiani de Pinglun. So let them linger in the recesses of your mind, these stories of conflict and law blending into the night, offering a rich and warm tapestry of history that endures in the silence where legends reside. Alive in the whispering echoes of a gunfighter's commodity, time itself. As twilight deepens, enveloping the wide expanse of the Wild West in a shroud of mystery, you are drawn to another dimension of the frontier's intrigue. Ghostly legends that drift like phantoms through the corridors of time. These tales, swirled with moonlit drama and whispered secrets, add an ethereal layer to a land already steeped in legend. It's a place where every gust of wind seems alive with the energy of spirits who refuse to be forgotten. Imagine standing in the hallowed silence of a deserted frontier settlement, the hollow structures casting strange shadows in the moonlight. The scent of the night air, fresh and cool, tinged with sage, carries with it murmurs of spectres who once walked these dusty streets, their tales woven into the fabric of the night sky. The chill in the air is more than the absence of warmth. It's a whisper of the past, lightly brushing against your senses like the faintest touch of unseen fingers. Ghost stories from the Wild West encapsulate the drama of the era in haunting detail. Consider the tale of the Weeping Woman of White Sands, a forlorn spirit said to wander the gypsum dunes under the moon's gentle glow, crying soft, nocturnal laments. Historians still argue about her origins, whether she mourns a lost lover, a child, or something else entirely. But her presence becomes an echo of the yearning and loss familiar to the experiences of those who forged their hopes amid the vast emptiness. Some other legends, like those surrounding the St. James Hotel in Cimarron, New Mexico, whisper of rowdy spirits who refuse to rest. Known for its history of violence and gambling during its boom time, the hotel is said to be inhabited by the spirits of gunslingers who once faced their destiny at its bar or in its rooms. Guests report mysterious footsteps, cold draughts where none should be, and echoes of laughter long silenced. It's a testament to the idea that within these walls, the dead have found a curious proximity to the living, their energies intertwined in a lingering waltz under dim chandeliers. The ghostly tales are not confined to establishments and towns. They ripple through the rocky landscapes and along trails where spectral presences are said to roam. Take those of Boot Hill Cemetery in Tombstone, where the spectres of those buried without ceremony are rumoured to rise with the setting sun, reliving their final moments in reluctant repetition. As you stand there, moonlight pooling around the scattered markers, an eerie feeling permeates the night. Intoning the legacy of a time when mortality was as uncertain as a prospector's fortune. Such tales reflect the consciousness of an era grappling with the otherworldly, where the uncertainty of life fed into beliefs of what lay beyond. These spectral stories weren't just campfire tales spun to pass the time. They were acts of living history, a bridge between the tangible grit of daily existence and the supernatural unknown. They have become enduring elements woven into the fabric of modern legends, gently reminding us of the thin veil between the seen and the unseen. There is also a delicate irony present. Many of the gunslingers, so accustomed to confronting death, would have found these tales to be a playful deflection from their own realities. Yet, as the whispers grew into tales told and retold, it becomes evident how these stories capture a deeper truth about the era. Navigating life on the frontier meant learning to make peace with the shadows. So as the night wears on, let these ghostly legends drift into your imagination like the music of a faraway, unseen fiddle. They are threads that weave through the tapestries of day-to-day life, reaching out to remind us all that the stories of the Wild West are as much about those who linger unseen as they are about those whose names glittered across history's headlines. In the chill of the evening, as the stars illuminate the heavens above, reflect on these haunting whispers of history. These phantasmal tales speak not only to the past, but to the heart of human nature, where mystery and wonder converge beneath a sky alive with silent secrets, and even the ghosts yearn to be remembered in the flickering light of memory. Let them become a gentle companion in the symphony of your own night, where shadows dance with light beneath the ancient azure canopy. With the stars still twinkling in the deep night sky, your thoughts travel to the softer side of frontier legends. The lost love stories that weave a poignant counterpoint to the often harsh narratives of the Wild West. These tales, like gentle murmurs beneath the more bombastic legends of grit and gunfight, remind us that even amidst the dust and danger, romance found a way to bloom. Imagine a moonlit evening, gracing the open prairie, where the sweet scent of wildflowers, carried by the evening breeze, intertwines with the more earthy aroma of campfire smoke. Here, beneath the vast canopy of stars, hearts intertwined as freely as the wind. In this world, love stories played out against a dramatic backdrop that could just as easily break spirits as it could forge them strong. One such story is that of Doc Holliday and Big Nose Kate, elder, whose stormy romance became the stuff of legend. Their love was intense and tumultuous, a reflection of the wild backdrop against which it unfolded. Historians still argue whether their bond was one of necessity, born out of circumstance, or if it was genuine devotion, despite the chaos that surrounded them. Yet, what remains undebated is the undeniable connection that saw them through the challenges of constant relocations, gunfights, and illness, a tale of passion that mirrored the tempestuous world around them. Consider the tale of Wyatt Earp and Josephine Marcus, a romance that provided solace amidst the grit of frontier life. Their relationship, said to have begun amidst the social whirl and gambling dens of Tombstone, endured the test of time and hardship. With Josephine by his side, Wyatt forged a path through fame, notoriety, and the relentless march of the years. Their love story, lived out over decades, paints a picture of stability in the shifting sands, a reminder that even those renowned for their bravado and toughness could be tender-hearted. Yet these tales are not limited to the famous alone. Numerous love stories unfurled quietly beneath the wagon wheels and wooden floorboards of saloons and homesteads. Many pioneers journeyed westward with sweethearts, and their bonds strengthened as they carved out homes from the wild. Nights might be spent sharing stories by firelight under the endless sky, each gaze exchanged across that intimate glow, holding conversations unspoken but deeply understood. In thrilling contrast to the rugged exterior of the West, love stories highlight the tender moments that existed in harmony with the survivalist spirit of the era. Feuds and shootouts may have dominated headlines, but hidden within the folds of history, there remains the delicate embroidery of romance that added layers of depth to the frontier experience. In this landscape of possibility, even the Outlaws, figures such as Jesse James, were known for their sweethearts. James, whose life took a tragic turn, found companionship and joy in his wife Z, a love affair tinged with authenticity amidst the lawlessness that dominated much of his life. Their connection, like others of their time, adds a dimension of humanity to the often brutal stories of the Wild West. These lost love stories enchant and intrigue, reminding you that the heartbeats behind the legends were just as vital as the actions they took. The whispers of these romances speak to the shared reality of life's softer side, the moments when time stood still, allowing a simple touch or a knowing look to resonate more deeply than any tale of daring adventure. As the cool night wraps its arms around the landscape, let these tender stories of love and connection wash over you like a gentle lullaby, sung by the gentle night breeze across a boundless prairie. They are echoes of a sentiment too potent to be lost to time, a poetic reminder that love was, and always will be, the true frontier each soul traverses beneath the watchful stars. Embrace these affections as you drift into quiet contemplation, where dreams of yesteryear linger like the whispering wind through a silent canyon, promising that, amidst all that changes, love remains the enduring legacy of hearts left open amid the vastness of the Wild West. As the horizon begins to glow with the early light of dawn, your thoughts turn toward how the tales of the Wild West have transcended time, permeating the rich fabric of American culture and identity. These stories, spun from grit and grain, remain a testament to the enduring allure of frontier life and the indelible impact it has left on the cultural tapestry. Whether through literature, film, music, or folklore, the essence of the Wild West continues to mesmerize, reverberating across decades with a vitality that feels eternal. The pungent aroma of coffee brewing over an open fire complements this reflective moment, a sensory nod to the timeless yet evolving presence of these narratives. The Wild West has been woven into the heart of storytelling, living on through images and words that depict tales both grand and intimate, echoes of a world where myth and history intersect at every juncture. One of the most powerful ways these stories have been immortalized is through the panoramic lens of film and television. Iconic westerns, with their sweeping landscapes and larger-than-life characters, weave dramatic sagas of bravery and moral complexity. Films such as The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, and TV shows like Bonanza capture the imagination, drawing audiences into narratives where justice is as unpredictable as the shifting sands of the desert. It's in this cinematic reinterpretation that the tales of the Wild West acquire new shades, blending nostalgia with artistry. Directors and writers paint the rugged beauty and brooding menace of the era, drawing on a palette of dust and dreams to capture the timeless allure of cowboys, outlaws, and pioneers. Each frame serves as a window into a time where the stakes were high and resolve was born out of necessity, themes that resonate deeply with audiences, regardless of era. Moreover, the music of the West provides a soundtrack to this legacy, creating poignant melodic backdrops that reinforce the sense of longing and adventure. From traditional cowboy songs to the haunting chords of modern folk and country, music has this uncanny ability to encapsulate the spirit of the frontier, infusing each note with the essence of open spaces and vivid personalities. You hear the echoes of Johnny Cash and Marty Robbins as they sing stories inspired by the trails and travails of those who came before, sweet melodies that sing of endurance, love, and misadventure. Folk legends passed down through generations continue to enrich the cultural landscape with humour and heart. Characters like Pecos Bill or Paul Bunyan, imbued with colourful exploits and miraculous feats, are charming testaments to the tall tales that have etched themselves into the bedrock of American folklore. These narratives, steeped in exaggeration and extraordinary abilities, parallel the outlandish exploits often celebrated in the annals of the West. Yet beyond cinema and song lies a deeper discourse, one that examines the motives and implications of Western expansion and acknowledges the complex histories that the genre sometimes conceals. Discussions surrounding the stories of Native American populations and the harsh realities faced by settlers lend nuance to the grand tapestry of the Wild West, offering richer, more comprehensive perspectives. Historians continue to explore these multifaceted narratives, balancing romanticized depictions with the ground truths of frontier existence, creating a dialogue that speaks as much to our present understanding as it does to history. The ongoing conversation reminds us that the frontier was not just a place, but a concept, a striving beyond boundaries, both external and internal. As you stand on the cusp of this new morning, let the multifaceted cultural impact of the Wild West resonate within you, tracing the journey of these timeless tales from their rugged origins to the myriad forms they inhabit today. They endure as bookmarks in the collective imagination, challenging and inspiring, a reflection of humanity's quest for freedom and identity, a lyrical reminder that even as the West has faded into history, its spirit continues to chart the course of dreams beneath the endless sky. Embrace this cultural song, let it echo within, the crescendo of past and present harmonizing softly across the open plains, a beautiful, unending ballad of life lived boldly amidst the untamed wilderness of the heart. As the first rays of morning light paint the sky in hues of pink and orange, you find yourself contemplating the myriad ways the stories of the Wild West have been retold, revised, and reimagined over time. The legends, born from dusty trails and dusty deeds, have undergone their own journey, evolving with each retelling into multifaceted reflections of the eras that embrace them. Reinterpretations of the Wild West have spanned arcing generations of storytelling, each iteration adding its own layer of complexity to the mythos. In these perpetual retellings, the core elements of the West, courage, conflict, and the quest for freedom, morph into new narratives, each echo powered by an evolving cultural compass that guides every reteller to choose focus and flair. At the heart of this reimagining process is an ongoing dialogue, a back and forth between past mythologies and present sensibilities. Known figures like Jesse James and Billy the Kid are often recast, their stories given flesh by the imaginations of writers and artists inspired by postmodern lenses, even as they reach back to the 19th century. Their lives are retold with new inflections, explored for motivations under the light of contemporary musings, and often placed alongside fictional characters who illuminate nuanced aspects of the human condition. Examine how the novels of Charles Portis, such as True Grit, and the groundbreaking graphic novels of modern creators, weave the grit of the West into timeless reflections on justice and morality. By contrasting the innocence of youth with the cynicism of age, these stories draw out the existential themes looming throughout our retellings, testing truths once taken at face value and casting them into more complex shades of grey. While Western films of the mid-20th century celebrated the black and white clarity of good versus evil, modern reimaginings often embrace the morally ambiguous. Films such as Unforgiven or No Country for Old Men challenge the romanticism of past narratives, revealing the blurred lines and the less noble aspects of an era often seen through rose-tinted glasses. In this evolution, violence is neither glorified nor demonized. Rather, it becomes a piece of the human puzzle, a necessary backdrop for examining the human soul amid precarious survival and solemn choices. Musicians, too, craft splendid reinventions, creating intricate soundscapes that borrow from the legends to both honor and reinterpret the past. Through striking lyrics and resonating chord progressions, they paint a canvas that reflects the soul of the West, the forgotten, the remembered, and the imagined. In academia, scholars and historians delve deep, separating fact and fiction, while also recognizing how intertwined they often remain. They present new perspectives that shine light on overshadowed figures of the frontier, revealing stories of diverse Americans, native peoples, African American cowboys, and pioneering women, whose voices add dimension and depth to the Western mosaic. These rigorous explorations bring forth lost narratives, enriching the dialogue and broadening the understanding of the era. Historians still argue over the rightful place of these stories within the larger cultural narrative, balancing the spectrum of nostalgia against the need for truth. In their debates, there is a yearning to find the harmony within the discord, the humanity within the heroics, melodies of life threaded between the harmony and dissonance of legacy. As you reflect on these reinterpretations, you recognize the reality that the essence of the Wild West lies in its ability to transcend its own temporal boundaries. Boundaries melt away and stories evolve, revealing that the frontier was, and forever is, a place, both in the land and in the heart. A vast canvas open to the brushstrokes of storytellers, unfettered by time. With each breath of morning air, allow this ever-unfolding adaptation to resonate, to beat in time with your own heartbeat. Consider how these stories, their retelling and reinvention, mirror your own journey of exploration and discovery. It is a universal moment shared, where history not only informs the present, but invites participation in the perpetual exploration under the sky's eternal dome. As the frontier stretches outward within the imagination's limitless horizon, let its tales be your guide, an invitation to seek, interpret, and dream anew in the theatre of the mind, where the myth and meaning of the Wild West continue to ride boldly into an uncharted future. The day stretches lazily into afternoon, and with the sun dipping lower, casting the world in hues of soft gold and lavender, you find yourself nearing the end of this journey through the tales and legends of the Wild West. It's time to reflect on the lasting legacy of these stories, the fading echoes of gunfire across the sands giving way to whispers carried on the evening breeze. In this contemplative twilight, each step you take feels like a gentle farewell, a nod of respect to the shadows of history that linger in the fading light. As you walk, the soft rustling of leaves and the gentle chorus of cicadas accompany you, nature's lullaby singing the past into restfulness. It is here, amidst the mellowness of a world slipping into dusk, that you come to understand the intricate dance of myth and reality, the indelible mark these tales have left behind, not only in history books, but in the collective consciousness of those who hear them. The legacy of the Wild West is far-reaching, shaped by the people who lived it and those who continue to breathe life into its legends. This storied era, born from both fact and fiction, exists as a grand allure, drawing eager minds with its allure of freedom, resilience, and the pursuit of dreams. It encapsulates the human spirit's undeniable yearning to carve a destiny from conflict and possibility, much like the settlers who etched their lives into the land they called home. In contemplating this legacy, consider how the story of the Wild West is also a story of contradictions, where survival intertwined with moral ambiguity, where courage danced with reckless abandon, and where law battled lawlessness in a land of vast expanse and often harsh beauty. The tales spun from this enigmatic time continue to inspire, challenge, and occasionally caution, serving as both a mirror to our past and a lens through which we view our present. As you pause on this journey, take a moment to embrace the quietude of the moment, to let the tranquility of evening seep into your bones. Here, among the rolling hills and the quiet whispers of the past, you find a place of introspection, a space where the stories of the Wild West softly twine around your thoughts, weaving their stories with delicate precision, encouraging you to reflect on the tales you carry within. The evening casts its shadows long and soft, cushioning your journey with its gentle embrace as the sky becomes a canvas where day meets night. In these moments, the urgency that accompanied the tales of gunfights and frontier justice fades into a serene acceptance, a hushed voice reminding you that every story, no matter how grand or humble, forms a part of the great tapestry of human experience. As the last rays of sunlight dip below the horizon and the first stars twinkle into being, you recollect the tales you've encountered on this journey, each a thread in the rich textured fabric of the Wild West. The gunfire and the grit, the mark etched in time, transform into a legacy of shared moments, a testament to resilience, adventure, and the endless frontier each spirit longs to traverse. Now, as you close your eyes and exhale softly, let the soothing echo of these stories continue to hum beneath your consciousness. May they bring you a sense of calm as they drift into the peaceful realms of your thoughts, offering solace in the beauty and mystery of a world once alive with untamed wildness. Rest easy, fellow wanderer, lulled by the gentle refrain of the past whispering into the silence of a sleeping world. And as you dream, know that these stories stay with you, a gentle melody accompanying the rhythm of your heart through the folds of night and into the morning light. Let these tales, anchored in myth and memory, become your guide across the vast and open plains of your own imagination. Greater than, sweet dreams.